the water segment.
Okay, so one more poll at the moment. So if you think your team is not performing as they should, what is holding them back? Is it you, is it them, or is it something else?
All right. Feel free to go ahead and guess. This is reply all, or select all that apply to you. And I'll go ahead and turn off the poll in just a couple of seconds. Yes, Julie, you can select multiple ones, so feel free. Oh, that's okay, no problem. I'm going to go ahead and close the poll in 3, 2, 1. All right, let's see the results. All right, Cassandra, can you see them on your end as well?
Yeah, I cannot see the percentages again, but the two highest is them or something else.
About 44%.
Okay, so the smallest number of people thought it might be them. I'm going to start there, and if it is you, this is for you, and if you don't think it's you, maybe it might be something that you can think about. So here's a few questions, and this is part of an assessment that I developed that I've been working with teams. And as Lauren said, there's a special offer at the end that everyone will be getting this assessment. So don't worry about writing these down, or if you think, oh, I want to have those questions, they are going to be available to you. So the first set of questions to think about, is it you? Have you wondered if the challenges you are having with your team are a result of something you are doing or not doing? Have the challenges you're having now happened before? Is it a recurring pattern? And what is your self-talk like? Is it blaming and judgmental? Is your wallow factor high? Do you move through disappointment slowly? So thinking about the answers to these questions, the more yeses, the more likely that it might have something to do with you. So inspiration is something that we all need. And if you're wondering if you might be the source of kind of your dissatisfaction with how your team's going, really tap into and think about what inspires you to lead your team. What is inspiring you to be at work? What is inspiring you to do the job that you have? So one of the things that we're going to do right now, really quick activity, is from Appreciative Inquiry, which is looking at what's working well with questions. So think of a time when you felt alive, excited, and engaged as a leader. What was happening? What did you contribute? And what are the essential ingredients that brought that leadership alive? What images came to mind when you heard those questions or when you read them on the screen? Here's a couple more. Imagine a future where you are feeling alive, excited, engaged as the leader of your team right now. Think about what that might look like. And what are 3 wishes for your leadership? So we're going to give you a chance to type that in so that we can all hear and see your wishes for your leadership.
All right. So everybody, once again, lower left-hand corner of the screen, there's a chat field. You can go ahead and type in your 3 wishes for leadership here, and we can share just a couple. We'll have a chance, to be able to do that. So what are you used to hearing when you ask this question, Cassandra? What comes up pretty frequently?
That's a good question, Lauren. And, people generally do have common wishes. They want to feel appreciated and valued and that they're contributing and making a difference. And I would say those are kind of universal wishes that people have around their leadership.
Perfect. Looks like Tony is saying a cohesive, well-oiled machine and progress for leadership. Those are pretty good. What does a well-oiled leadership team look like for you, Cassandra?
I was just thinking that. Thinking that is an interesting metaphor. I think that it would be a team that has trust. You know, the number one kind of factor that determines whether a team works together well or not is the level of trust.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Just a couple of more here. Let's see. Jay says problem solving is in flow, not bogged down. Julie says she'd like to have happy clients and contractors who feel self-actualization. That's a great one. Lee says respect, synergy, and appreciation. I like both, 3 as well. And then Liz says to successfully work together, enjoy working together, and to communicate well. Those are pretty great. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, those are. Yeah. Seeing problems or obstacles as opportunities. Yes, my friend calls that problemtunity. And letting the problem solve you instead of having to solve it. Mm-hmm. So this is a renewal. It's an interesting topic, because what does it have to do with this in terms of you leading your team? Well, if you are not feeling inspired and you're not feeling refreshed, then really think about what do you need to do to renew yourself. And interestingly, I just watched this Simon Sinek TED Talk again this morning. I don't know how many people here have watched it. I've probably seen it a dozen times. But he talks about this concept of the golden circle, and that what differentiates leaders and organizations that are extraordinary is that they start with the why of what they're doing. Why do they exist? What do they believe? Why are they doing what they're doing? And that they operate out of that, and that they communicate out of that. And that the non-extraordinary, the ordinary companies or organizations, they work the other way. They talk about what they do and how they do it. And, you know, it's very, very challenging to make this shift. I remember using this video in a training and then immediately giving people a chance to talk about their why, and people just defaulted to their kind of elevator speech about what they did and how they did it, and everyone just laughed. So we are going to give you a second to think about it, and then to type in, what is your why? Why do you get up in the morning and go to work every day? What if you reconnected to it? What if you renewed your relationship with your why? Would make a difference for you, would help you feel more inspired and be able to communicate more from that source of inspiration.
That's a really great question, too. All right. So everybody feel free, chat with us again. Give us your inspiration for working every morning, what gets you excited about what you do, what pushes you forward. All right. Oh, they're starting to come in pretty fast. Okay. So Sue says to provide a meaningful work environment for her clients, colleagues, and consultants, which is great. Tony says he loves his job. He loves his coworkers. He loves his patron. He loves everything that he does, good and not so good. That's great. That's a great way to keep a positive attitude. Julie says she loves being able to help others learn. And let's see, Lee just chimed in with customer satisfaction. So there's a lot of love around this, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, so if you're fired up and inspired and charged, then let's move on to look at your team. What's going on with them? What might be happening? Is there a system to measure the performance? Is there a way to assure that the strengths of your team are aligned with their roles? And is there a way to assess the clarity of the goals and objectives? One of the things that is very common is that people that are in supervisory positions think that they've been clear with their team, but the team does not feel clear. And often this is not known to the person who is in the supervisory position. So that's why this question and a series of questions is really getting into not just what do you think you've said or do you think you've been clear, but is there really a way that you can get some data around how clear the goals and objectives are? Are people working with their strengths? And do they know what the goal is? So agreements is a resource for this area to really look at what agreements are there and are they in writing. So this is something that it's really clear when you have agreements in writing about what the goals are and what people are aligning around. And it's not just enough to have agreements. You know, you really need to think about, do you have them within your team? Do you have them about your meetings, about how work gets done, and about how you want to treat each other? So not just one global set of agreements, but really getting into the specifics of the situations in which the work happens every day. So looking at what those are. And then, are you holding yourselves accountable to these, or how are you holding yourself accountable? Having agreements that are not held, it's almost like not having them. So I know that people have been in meetings, I know I have, where somebody gets up and says, okay, here's our agreements for the meeting, you know, X, Y, Z. And then, you know, within 5 minutes, people are going against the agreements. And if nobody says anything, it's like you don't even have agreements. And then in some cases, people feel like it's just even worse to say what they are and then ignore them than it is to even not say anything. So looking at what are the mechanisms that your organization has for holding people accountable? And what skills do you and your team have for having these difficult conversations? And what is the level of trust among you and your team? So if you have these agreements, but you don't have the trust or the skill level, they're probably not going to be upheld. So really it's looking at, as a resource to this issue about what might be happening to your team, to really looking at, you know, maybe it isn't just the things that the people are bringing with them individually. It's not the individual team members. Maybe it has something to do with what is or isn't clear in terms of how people are relating to each other. So this next slide is a quote that I often use because it really talks about what it looks like when leadership is happening. So go to the people, live with them, learn from them, love them, start with what they know, build with what they have. But with the best leaders, when the work is done, the task accomplished, the people will say, we have done this ourselves. Okay, so is it your environment? We've talked about, is it you? We've talked about, is it your team? And if you remember at the opening poll, we said, is it you, is it your team, or is it something else? And that something else is often your environment or your culture. So is there a culture of high performance and learning in your organization? And are you and your team set up to succeed? So one of the things that contributes to a culture of high performance is acknowledgement. And Lauren, when you asked me before, what do people say their wishes are for their leadership? You know, it often is this human need that we have to be acknowledged for our contributions.
Okay.
So how do you do, sorry?
No, I was saying that's interesting.
Yeah, so how do you do that? How do you make that part of your culture? Because it's not something that is normally part of a culture unless there's some kind of practices or system or structure to encourage it. And I'm not talking about being fake. I mean, people generally really have a lot of regard for the people they work with, and it's just not spoken. So using something like this book, The How Full Is Your Bucket, it gives tools for organizations so that you can ask people how they want to be acknowledged and set up some simple practices to communicate your appreciation to each other. And then setting that as kind of a norm for how you do work. And that can really make a huge difference. Another key thing with high performance is mastery. It is the opportunity for people to get better at what they're doing. Again, another human need to feel like we're good at what we're doing. So this is from Dan Pink's work where he talks about what is motivating to people. And it is this combination of having a purpose and being autonomous and having mastery. So we have another poll. And this is a chance for people to pick just one thing. So you may be interested in using more than one of these strategies, but we're asking you in this poll just to pick one. As we're kind of closing out, we're thinking about, okay, you've had some ideas, you've thought about some things. What's something that you might want to use right away? So professional development is one, application of learning at work, learning or professional development goals as a strategy to help people guide their own learning and professional development, to raise meeting facilitation skills among your team, if you think that's something that might really help you make a shift so that you have that future team that you want right now, and or increasing your capacity in target areas. So picking a particular skill or a topic and having people learn about it. So we'll see what people want to do as they think about their takeaways for this time.
All right, so it looks like everybody's voting now. I'm going to give you 3 more seconds. 2, 1. All right, let's go to the final results of this last poll. And what do you think, Cassandra?
Looks like the highest vote getters are the professional development and the increasing capacity in a targeted area.
Okay. Very cool. Are those in line with what you expected, or are those pretty new for you?
I think it's interesting. Nobody picked the learning or professional development goals, which is interesting to me. And I'm curious about why that is. But the professional development, I think, is something that, you know, depending on the sector, it is not necessarily a given. The social sector is sometimes very under-resourced in terms of professional development. And so I think that may be something that is easy to do if you think about, you know, different ways of doing it, and even just, you know, having a book group or reading a book together is a way to help people. So I think those are interesting.